Yesterday I was really proud of the work I was able to get done on this stream. I got a bit of functionality built in with making circles and parametric stuff, and I ended with starting on producing or trying to come up with a way to do sort of 2D sketches that can have polygon shapes and holes inside them, and today I'm just going to keep working away at that. So not much to say other than to get into it. There it goes. So yesterday, if I pull it up, I ended with, so I created successfully a few different things here. I've got I have a cylinder and a hexagon here. Oh, gotta check something here. Just having a look at my frames and stuff for a second. Something's a little bit off today. That is a little peculiar, but maybe it'll be okay. Just a momentary blip, but I think we'll be fine. What was I saying? Yeah, yesterday I managed to make a regular polygon and cylinder sort of thing, so, and a join function, so I can make these sort of combined solids, which is a big step forward and extremely useful for making parts that are a little more, you can add complexity to the parts that I can make now, which is excellent. So I started working on the idea of what you see here, which is faces that have holes in them, and as you can tell by these work in progress renders, it needs to be reworked. My data structure and approach to making polygons is only good for making just polygons with a single closed loop. As soon as you add in additional loops to define holes and stuff, you run into these errors here where the edges cross over each other and you don't get the correct output. So in order to start working on fixing that, I figured out that here what you can do is create in SVG, which is the output that I'm working toward at the moment, you have this, there's this concept of paths, and what you can do is actually draw the outer path and the inner path and define it in a single item here, and it will correctly, if you draw the paths appropriately, it will correctly cut out the inner path, which is what is shown in this image here. So today I'm going to work on figuring out how to produce a valid path that will render correctly into SVG, and then figure out how to build the idea of inner paths that create holes into the concept of a 2D sketch. So that'll kind of be the work for the day, which I think will be plenty and should be fun. So let me just make sure I've got my notes saved and ready to go here, just in case. Come on. Parametric circle there. Yeah, so these are the things that I would have to do today. Use SVG's path to create a sketch implementation, and then re-implement Polygon 2D to be able to use path instead of polygon. What I mean by that is just this. Polygon 2D takes a list of points and then produces a polygon data structure. So if I do a point 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, it's a right angle triangle. It produces a node edge face list, and I need to rework that to produce what I expect it to produce. In fact, I also have this other one, stylo.draw/polygon, which directly outputs in, well, it's a different function that takes the same set of arguments. This is actually where I'll start. Okay, let me, if I could do that. Right, so if I do HTML on that, oh, sorry, hiccup.core, there. So that produces, if I pretty print that, I get a polygon tag there with the list of points. So that produces a regular polygon in SVG. So before I get into doing things in here, what I want to do is make sure I understand how to properly use path to create polygons and stuff. So what I'm going to do is go here into shapes, and I'm going to work on a new function here. And I'm going to what should I define closed path. Yeah, I'll start with that as a definition, and it'll take a list of points, and it will, well, for consistency up here, I'll make it take, oh, this should be color. 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 Otherwise, that's fine. So for consistency here, I have to call closed path with points nil, nil, and then do here points color. And I do, it won't be polygon, it'll be path instead, but it'll otherwise have a similar shape to it. It'll be class line if color color, otherwise clear. That's the class that it'll have. And path, it has D is there, and it'll be let's see here. Okay, so there's a different syntax for the path here, which I can work on here. So that's more complicated. So I'm going to need a new, instead of point string here, it'll be path string points. And we'll start there. That should be a good starting point. We'll go into the draw and we'll load file Okay, good. So we're in the correct namespace, and I should see point string. Yeah, okay. So we're good, right? 0, 0, 1, 1. Perfect. Okay. So here's an example. I'll just have this ready to go here. All I need to do is go okay, Z is close path, okay, or Z I should be saying. We'll ignore arcs for now. We'll also ignore Bezier curves. We'll ignore curves as well. And we'll also even ignore V and H. So all we'll need is M, move to, L, line to, and Z, close path. So that was my mistake. So if we ignore the curves and things, which I can add later maybe, we can make a helper. Should hopefully not be too difficult to use here. So if we define path string to take points, right? All I have to do is I'll have to move the cursor to the first point in the list, and then every subsequent point is a line 2, and then the last, after you write the last point, you put a Z. So it's something to the effect of let's see here. Well, what happens if I do string to a set of points like this? Okay, so if I apply string to that, it is 0, 1. Right. So what I want instead is okay, what I would want instead is apply string. What I want is this, right? Apply string to list with spaces in it there. But I could instead I'm trying to think of a concise way to write the function I want, but I'll just do it this way because it should be fine. Apply string to the interleave of 01 with a list of one item, which is just a space. Does that work the way I want it to? Oh, no, it doesn't. Well, let me think of something a little differently here. No, that's the wrong function. If I go here, let line 2 be a function, right? If I make it a function, it can be line 2, and I can make it, I could just do string of L of first space second Does that work? Okay, so if I do map line 2 points as a test for this function, if I do, if I now run that path string on a list of these, just 3 points to test, 0, 0, 1, 0, and 0, 1, L, 0, 0, L, 1, 0, L, 0, 1. Okay, that's good. The only difference there for move to is the same thing, string M. By the way, is it capitals and lowercase, I think, mean things as well, right? Lowercase letters, capital letters means absolutely positioned, lowercase means relative. So I actually do want these to stay as capital letters because I'm assuming you'll pass in absolute coordinates as the points list. So I do need that. Then all I need to do is finish this off first. Second, I saw this format function the other day and I'm trying to see if this might be a better approach. Format might be better. Yeah, so if I do first, second, doesn't work. Oh, I might have to do this. No. Oh, does it have to be a string? No. Huh. Right. Okay. So I would have to do this to make I would have thought that would work, but whatever. Let's just make a tiny note here. Maybe for string, for any situation where you are building up strings, it is good to use format instead. So that might be worth doing. I'll have to find out. Okay, so instead of this, what I want to do now is I do want to string together I want to apply string to the list of move to first points. Oops. Let's see here. Move to first points, and then let me see. Let me think about this first. String, move to first points. And you can apply string to map line to rest points. But I have to interleave spaces between that. Map line 2. Interleave rest of points and repeat that. And then the last thing is a space and Z like that. Okay, that's a bit confusing looking, but we'll try it. If I do path string, build me a path string for this triangle, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. Okay, that seems to work. But of course I don't need the space at the Z because of the interleave of spaces earlier. So if I try that again, move to 0, 0, which it doesn't technically need to, but okay. Then line from 0, 0 to 1, 0. Then a line from 0, 1, or from where you're at, 2, 0, 1, and then close that. So that should work. So let's go there. Let's assume that the helper is good for now. Oh, by the way, does Z matter? Can be capital or it doesn't matter, so I'll leave it. If I go back to shapes here and do a closed path string points, if I do that, if I run closed path on the same list, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, that's and then I do HTML to compile that, hiccup.core/HTML on that. Okay, so I get a path with some class data and then a D here, and that path listed out. So since I have all of that, the next thing to do is just see if I can swap out using the closed path with a polygon call to see if it'll work okay. So in order to do that, what I'll do is go back to my extension here, and I do my draw function. Oh no, I have to think a little bit differently yet for a moment. Right here, this is all a little messy at the moment because it's all still testing and prototyping, and by testing I mean manual testing. But if I save and do closed path here, let me see if it rebuilds. Yeah, it did. And I have something that doesn't work. Let's go back a step here. Let me map val not onto the concatenation of these things, but the complete removal of this one. So I can get rid of this. All I need to do is that. I think that should provide me the correct, yeah. Still not, it's not right, and that would be because of some reason that I don't know yet. I wonder if these tiny values have anything to do with it. Just make it 0. I also wonder if something's wrong there. Let's see here. Copy inner HTML. Let's go back here and just make a little HTML scratch spot here. Okay, path, class is fine. D is what I need to fix. So we've got move 5, 0. We've got L, this whole thing, 5, and then we've got an extra L here for some reason. That's not how that should be, right? Yeah, that's not right. So we'll have to figure that out. But then we have a valid one here. Oh, they end in, do they all end in L and start in L? That's strange. Let's see here. Let's see how this all looks. Okay, so there's 4 points is correct, like that, which does mean I just have these extra L calls being popped in there, which I shouldn't have. So this would theoretically be a valid path, even though it's got really weird looking float values there. Okay, so that means my my helper function is not correct, which means if I go draw helpers here, I have a look at it'll be this one here, apply. Let's see. Make a square. Let's get rid of that and see what, oh sorry, I meant to do, all I want is no, let's do this. I just want to see what this looks like. So if I copy that and paste it in there, whoop. What is happening here? Okay, oh, rest, so it drops the first one, which is fine. So we've got L2 0. Oh, of course. I don't want, the interleave is incorrect here. I actually have to do this. Map to, yeah, okay, so it's got to look like this. First of all, if I just make the map like that and have a look at that, I get the correct formats. What I want to do is this. I want to apply string to interleave of that with repeat spaces. Excuse me, a little tired today. Okay, and that's the string that I need. So I did this incorrectly. So I have to apply string to map line 2, take the interleave out of this, and move the interleave out a level. So let me get rid of the repeat this whole thing. Let's also move this down to its own level so I'm not confusing myself as much. Here, let's fix this up. Okay, string, move to first points and a space. Then the next thing is apply string to, let's get rid of this. I have to apply string to not just the mapping of this, but also the interleave. Interleave that mapping with a repeat of space characters like this. So if you apply string to that, then you'll get the right format, and then you end the whole thing off with Z, like that. Now a path string, if I run that and test it, with this, I get a well-formed path string instead of the garbled thing that I had before. So that's good. Okay, so if I save this, that updates the source code, and I go back here now. Hopefully this works. It should make a diamond shape, which it does. Okay, good. That means I'm on the right track. So now, the next thing I want to test is, let me clean up this sketch thing just a little bit here. I have a closed path with this. Let me get rid of this whole thing entirely so that I can, let me just clean up this whole line a little bit so I know I'm sitting in the right space of things. There. Okay. So now, closed path I want to do on, let's see. Actually, I need to, right away now, I do need to think of something different. Okay, so closed path works for a single path. What if, though, I want to do not just a single path, but multiple paths? Okay. One closed path is all fine and good, but if I want to do let's make another one and call it polypath. And this is, I'm making this up as I go. So it'll be a list of it'll be and paths like that. I think that makes sense. Yeah, let's go with that. Well, actually, paths, polypath, paths, no. Paths, color, this is where I do path, and this is the same, class, line, if color, color, otherwise clear, there, and close that off. And here, D can be so if I have multiple paths, it'll be apply string. No, it'll be apply path string to paths. But that won't be enough. It'll also be, let me make a let here. Let path strings be apply path string to paths there. So then this is apply string to interleave path strings with new line characters. Yeah, repeat. Well, it doesn't have to be new lines, it can just be spaces. So that makes a bit of sense to me. So that's the path. Close that, that. Let's try that. So polypath then, well, it should work if I do something like this. If I do polypath, so there's path 1, there's path 2. So path 1 is a square, 0, 0. Oop, did it wrong. 4, 0, 0, 2, 0, 2, 2, 0, 2. And then path 2 is a square that sits inside it. So it starts at 1, 1. No, half, half, sure. Like that. 1.5, comma 0.5. Yeah. And then 0.5, 1.5. Okay, so there's two paths, which are just lists of points. Pretty straightforward. Wrong number of arguments. Oh, of course. Path strings is map path strings, not apply. Still wrong. Oh, yes. I have to make it just one list like this. There we go. So that works. It's confusing. I might want to change the signature of this, but that produces, this is the first path, and the second one is right here. So that seems to work. So if I run, so that's polypath, that's the first idea of polypath. If I go back to the foo stuff here, if I do polypath on, if I just put this in a list directly, this will actually work. I need to close it properly. So that should work without a change, I think. No polypath in this context. Didn't save this, I guess. save that. Okay. Let's see if it works this time. Yep. And we have, let's just refresh. Yeah, so no difference. But it does mean now I should be able to copy this, go here, and make a new regular polygon that is a radius of, say, 1.5 instead. Should save that, and I should see a smaller diamond appear inside here. Yeah, okay. So now I'm on the right track. Whoops. Let me inspect this element for a minute. And I want to see if I do fill on this, blue, fill rule. Oop. Come on. Fill rule, even odd. Yeah, okay. That is the behavior that I'm looking for. Let's make this fill less jarring to the eyes here. Slate gray. Right, so fill rule even odd is what I want, and fill, I want a fill of some kind. Okay, so that's a step in the right direction, polypath. I'm just thinking through how I want to, the next thing I want to do. How's everybody doing today, by the way? If you're watching and you want to chat, you go right ahead. I can answer questions, just talk about other projects you're doing, anything like that. It'd be all cool. If you just want to sit back and watch, that is totally fine as well. I'm just glad you're here, you know? If you're watching a VOD later or on YouTube or something, I appreciate that as well. And feel free to leave comments or anything like that. I want to keep the ball rolling on these streams and get better at doing it. So I'd love to hear what people have to say in regard to what I'm working on, in regard to the kind of programming streams they like to see, that sort of thing. But if you're just there chilling and don't want to talk, that's completely fine too. I'm just glad you're tuned in. Okay, so a closed path works on just a single set of points, right? And a polypath takes a list of path point lists. So a list of lists. Let me see here for a minute. I just have to check one final thing with polypath. If I give it a color here, hot pink, is that gonna work? I just need to check. I mean, it gives a fill, but is hot pink not a... Oh, that's right. It puts it in the class. So it's a class name in this case. That's not right. Hey Azafaza, cool stream, thanks. Just started learning Clojure and just trying to learn common usages through watching other people. You're trying to build a note-taking app with Reframe for front end and Ring for back end. Having fun so far? Hey, I'm glad to hear it. That's really cool. I'll give you a little caveat up front. I'm self-taught as a Clojure programmer, so in terms of common usages, I might not actually be the right person to watch. But keep in mind that I'm using it for whatever, so maybe that's still cool to see. I just want to let you know that it's not like I'm some super professional at Clojure, right? But that sounds like a cool project. And I happen to know that Ring and Reframe are pretty much like in the top recommendations for anyone doing that sort of thing. So cool stuff. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. I appreciate that. Okay, so I don't need this, but I do need to actually go to my style here for a minute. And so what kind of features are you thinking of for the note-taking app, or is it more of a proof of concept kind of thing that you're working on? Just curious. Sounds cool. I am realizing I have to clean up where styles are defined. Example, the 2D fabric for quilt patterns. Azafaza, by the way, if I pronounce your name incorrectly, I do apologize. Sometimes it's hard to parse out where like spaces should be in people's usernames. But the 3D library has defaults. There we go. You're trying to build something like your current org mode setup as a web app. Org mode is amazing, but having to buy into Emacs means some people get excluded. No, I got it right? The pronunciation? Yeah. So, as you might be able to tell, I am indeed using org mode myself here, and I completely agree. I really love it. I particularly love being able to do stuff like this. You can just kind of, like, organization of your notes and stuff beforehand almost doesn't matter. You could just move things around and like add and remove things like crazy. Right? Like you can do so much, and I happen to love it, but you're completely right that having to buy into Emacs it's like the learning curve isn't a curve, it's just a straight up cliff, you know? So it's not the easiest all the time, but I really love the workflow of stuff like this, right, where you can oh well, I was gonna be all cool and show off the results in the thing here, but I silenced them. Of course I did. Does it work in this one? Yeah. So you can run, yeah, anyway, I'm sure you know. If you already use org mode, you probably know a few of the fun little things already. But yeah, I love it. It'd be cool. It'd be really cool to have that, at least some of the, like this kind of stuff, like the folding and manipulating things like that in a web app. That'd be pretty cool. Your current org mode setup is org roam and helm. So it'll have omni search at the top, your web app, and a note that changes at the bottom based on the search term. Enter will take you into the note. Similar to nvalt. If I've actually not used nvalt. I'm gonna just put look up nvalt later. As a 1, 2, 3 mentioned it. There. Now when I go over my stream notes, I'll see that, and I assume it's something cool. Don't think I'll build something like org babel right now. That bends my mind thinking about how to do it in a web app. Yeah, that would be pretty wild. The closest thing I can think of, very specifically to Clojure, is oh shoot, oh yeah, have you heard of the there's this thing, the clips REPL, that is like it's a Clojure script in your browser compiler. Let's see if I could actually showcase it for a moment here. Control Enter. Okay, so you've got your you can write your Clojure script here. This is the, like, what it compiles to, I guess, and then this is the JavaScript, I suppose. And then here's your output, and then what you print line hello. Yeah, then you see the print, like the console here, I guess. Anyway, it's a really cool REPL. I've played around with it a little bit before, and you can embed it into blog posts. Anyway, this is completely off topic, but the point is, this is the closest thing I could think of. If you have some web app where you've got a code block, and then it basically will run whatever, you know, someone else's REPL or REPLit or something, and then return the result into a little div or something in your spot there. But anyway, it's a, like you said, it bends your mind. There's all kinds of crazy things you can do, but because they're crazy, they're not necessarily easy to do. Oh, feature creep time. Oh man, I'm sorry. Yeah, but so even if you don't end up using it for anything like that, this REPL here, it's quite amazing. You can even, like, there are I'm not going to get into it today, but I had written kind of a blog post out, and I had code snippets in there, and basically all I had to do was add the CDN.js script tag at the top of the HTML, and it basically turned all my static code into interactive snippets. It was pretty neat. So it might be something to look into, even for other things, just for fun. Clips REPL. It also does other languages. It's got Python, JavaScript. I think it even does Scheme. So the possibilities they're wild. There's tons of stuff you can do. Anyway, that's a sidetrack, but thanks for showing. I'll have a look into it. Nice, cool stuff. It sounds like you've got a really cool app idea. I hope that you learn a lot and can work through the inevitable troubles that come along. That sounds like a fun project. My project, while I'm here not working on it, is something that I definitely need to keep focused on sometimes, you know? Okay, so what I'm thinking through right now is how I want to proceed with this idea here of faces and where to put style things in there. Style base, draw base. Okay, this is, okay, here we go. I've got something going that I want. Okay. Let me see what I've learned. Have I learned anything at all? Okay, so this particular SVG element contains a bunch of path. There's the path here. Okay, so if I apply the fill, let's do sure, Burleywood, why not? And then the fill rule, right? Even, odd. There we go. Even, odd is what I need to have built into my kind of defaults here. Because that gives me the behavior I want for faces with holes cut into them. Sorry for sidetracking, talking about my own project. Oh, totally don't worry about it. Any sidetracking is my own brain's fault. You talk about whatever you want. It's really cool to hear what other people are up to. It's a lot of fun. That's kind of one reason I want to keep streaming and I like doing this is to be able to chat with people who are doing their own thing. So totally no worries about that. It's all my own brain's distraction that gets me sidetracked. It's also the case that I do have a lot of time where I'm not streaming that I can also work on what I need. So, I mean, you know, a stream is an interactive thing, right? A bit of distraction, totally part of the game. What am I using to render Clojure in the browser? You'll stop talking soon. Oh, you keep talking all you want, man. No problems. Yeah, so this is, I'll preempt this by saying I'm in a heavy sort of prototyping phase of doing this, but all I'm running is, well, the basics of what I'm doing. I have, let's see here, a bunch of functions that create, let me do a polygon, for example, in the REPL here. So let's imagine I need to draw a triangle. I don't know why, I just want to, because I love triangles. So I've got this polygon function here that when you pass it a list of 2D points, it creates this data structure, which if you're using Clojure, you'll probably, if you haven't heard about it already, you'll probably soon hear about Hiccup, which is a really cool and quite useful compiler, basically, that takes vector data structures with tags in them and spits out HTML for you. So if you have you could have a div, and then you could have inside the div a paragraph with text, right? And it's a fairly concise way to create HTML and put that out into files, or if you're using a web app, in Reframe I'm pretty sure they use Hiccup or something similar to it. Anyway, my little function here makes a Hiccup data structure, which then I can compile with the Hiccup compiler, right? And then spit that out. So now I have a valid polygon that has the points exactly as I had specified them. So that the basics are, I have a bunch of helper functions that make Hiccup data, which compiles to HTML, and then I just have for right now, I have a little watcher. I have this little one-liner here. FS watch is a different program, and I can watch this file and pass it into my main function. And so once I start it up, anytime I edit the markdown file, it runs the compiler on the data structure. And so here, if this thing I'm working on, which tangentially is, I can maybe get to in a moment, if I save this file, this ASDF here, it's a little slow because I haven't made it fast. It re-renders the whole HTML page, and I have a live server that just refreshes anytime the HTML changes, so then you can see it automatically there. Yeah, reframe does use hiccup, cool. So basically I've got this sort of mishmash workflow that when I make a change to the markdown page, or file I mean, it automatically re-renders the thing. And the way, I haven't mentioned this yet, there's another library I'm using called Insta Parse. You may have heard of that one too. It's another pretty powerful library. So you can define a grammar and it'll create a parser for you. So I have this work in progress markdown grammar parser, and then I have a mechanism where I'm slowly building in little extensions to it. So I use markdown, but it's not strictly speaking actually markdown. It's markdown, and then if you get to a spot where I have a custom tag, then it does some custom thing. So the lazy part of me made a little transform, where is it? You see, I confuse myself sometimes here. So I have this, it parses, and then it'll run basically any section of this document that's inside an executable spot here. It just basically evals that in the Clojure REPL. So it's kind of dangerous, and that's why I'm still in a prototyping phase, right? But so it parses the markdown. If it's normal markdown stuff, it renders it out to HTML. If it's an executable section, it'll eval all of the Clojure forms and then render the results of those things into the document. That's the most concise way to say it. And so using that idea, I can render out to SVG and in the future way more cool stuff. That's really awesome. Thanks. I do appreciate that. So I'm prototyping here using Literate Programming, like a computational note kind of thing. Yeah, so I will admit the what you're seeing on my screen is a little messy, and in fact, as I've been streaming, I'm noticing kind of weaknesses in my workflow. But broad strokes, yes, I'm doing literate programming because I find it to be a really convenient way to write notes to myself and write code. It just works nicely with how my brain is thinking through things. And I found it to be particularly valuable during prototyping because sometimes I don't even know what features I want my library to have until I end up using it, right? So instead of trying to preempt my future needs by guessing it, I just start working and kind of discover it as you go. And that's been just a very enjoyable way to go about things. Is it a perfect approach? I wouldn't say so, but it's certainly been useful for me so far. Slightly on that note, the actual document I'm working on here, the idea I have is So I used to work in SolidWorks and do 3D modeling quite a bit. And I love 3D modeling, but a challenge all the time is creating, you make your model, and if it's complicated to, say, open it up and make a change because you have it set up so that, let's imagine you made a 3D model of a truss, and the design you have lets you specify you want it to be 21 feet or 24 feet, but in doing so the model changes a bit for some reason. You can do that in a program like SolidWorks, and it's really quite powerful, but the documenting part of that you have to do in a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, or you just have to tell your colleagues about how to change it. And there's this big disconnect almost between people who want to use and change the file and the people who know how to change it without breaking it. So that's maybe a whole bigger problem than even I can solve. But one idea I like is creating a document that has all of the rationale, so the pros, right in there, and you can just kind of tell the story about how you build out the thing you want to build. So I'm building a framework around doing that, and in order to make sure I know what I want, I am designing things that I'm going to build for myself anyway. So this is going to be, this is a crappy, this is not a real thing yet, but I'm building a little standing desk, pardon me, for myself. So the library I'm using to make it is also being prototyped as I go, but the idea is as I keep building physical things in the real world, right, I'll learn more and more what kind of features I need to put into the library so that it's actually useful. I hope that makes any little bit of sense. It's kind of maybe a bit out there as an idea, but I'm enjoying the work on it. So yeah, I'm not sure if that made a ton of sense, but that's kind of it. Sometimes it's hard for me to explain, but I think it's a powerful idea to be able to write and diagram things as you need to, just as you go. So, on that note, I have to remember what I was doing. And, oh yeah, that's right. It was the parser I'm not touching for right now, so I can close that off. If I'm in my style thing here, I have a base style set, style base, and I have some built-in draw styles right here. This is what I wanted to work on. So what I want to do actually is make a little path thing here, and I want to give it, let's see here. So if I'm getting it right, one use case of the tool is to show how measurements are derived from other parts of a model and tying the derivations to actual data of the model. Yeah, that's absolutely that's absolutely right. In my thinking about the future, everything goes exactly as I want it world, you could imagine. So let's say, for sake of simplicity, that, okay, so I have this thing that is a standing desk, and I have the measurements I designed were for the corner of my bedroom or whatever that work for me. But if you wanted to make your own, but you have a different sized corner of your house, you want different dimensions, but you love the design, right? You could go to the top of the file, click a little drop down or something, and say change major parameters or something along those lines. And you could type in a new height, a new width, and a new depth. And then as you're typing it, everything in the document changes appropriately, right? So exactly like you say, all of the constraints and parameters and things that are dependent upon other things get re-evaluated as you make changes to those global parameters. And that would make a document like this, in my opinion, extremely useful. You don't have to worry about making incorrect assumptions if you're manually changing things. You can fiddle around with the parameters yourself to see how the design logic was put together. It just seems to me like a really powerful approach. And eventually, I hope I can get something kind of there. For the workflow I've described to you already, it's not there yet because it's basically it's a one-way thing, right? Like this is just an HTML page with static stuff in it. I'm changing everything in the source file, and it's being rebuilt every time I make a change. So if I want to get to what I'm talking about, there's a little more involved with that whole process, but it's a really cool place to take it, I think. So it's fun to prototype this, and I'm really excited to keep prototyping and keep it going so I can get past prototyping into an actual, real world useful kind of library. The possibilities are, to me, very exciting. Okay, so this path has some fill to it. Let's just give it a default. Oh yeah, let's see here. Let's go. My current favorite theme is the Nord theme, so I'm just going to go and take a color from here. Let's make this green the default fill color. Why not? For right now, that'll do just fine. So there's fill, and then fill rule is even odd. Okay, now I just need to make sure that this is actually being tangled in there. I turned it off at one point to make the file save quicker. One little problem I have with how I'm using org mode is I do tend to, I have a lot of different spots for little bits of code. And so when you save the file and it tangles to the source files, there is a noticeable delay, which is a bit of a nitpick I have. So I do wonder if there's ways to speed that up. I'm not sure. Let's see if I make a change here. Let's see if it actually, if it picked up the new CSS rules in there. I'm guessing it did not, and I'm not sure. What have I done? Let me see here. Let's go open the file. Okay, so it's in here, right? So that's good. Let me inspect this and see if oh shoot, I have a conflicting rule. Well, that's silly. OB async. Use it to tangle multiple blocks concurrently. Okay. I think I've heard of that, and I thought I had installed it at one point, but actually now that you mention it, I think that's not the case. OB async. Oh yeah. I got you. Thanks for the tip. Another thing, it's in my list to look up. Every time I'm streaming and people are chatting, I love it, but my like to-do list of things to look into just grows and grows and grows and grows. It's great. There's always more to do than not. I cheated by marking this important, and that's not the real solution. I'm trying to think about well, actually, if I do if I do it like this, dot face, yeah, but I don't need to edit this file actually, so save it. Oh shoot, there we go. Okay, so if I go back to style base source, I go into the draw stuff here. So what I've done, instead of just calling it on the path directly, I could make a class for the general fill for all of the faces, and then I just have to change. If I go back to now, if I call this here with a oh, what a mess. One other problem I have with the way I'm currently doing it, since I'm editing a markdown file just in my well, clearly this is only in fundamental mode, so I guess I didn't install the markdown extensions, first of all. And second of all, since markdown doesn't have, like, it just has generic code blocks, it doesn't by default have all the proper formatting tools for Clojure, so it's just a huge jumbled mess. So that's something I want to change around as well. I have a list of things to do. But that's fine. If I give it the class face, save that and let it rebuild, I think if I did everything correctly that this should then show up as green without me messing around with it once it rebuilds. Yes! It's a step in the right direction. Okay, now I need to think about how I'm gonna proceed, because if I run, well, first of all, if I copy this whole mess into my REPL here, oh, no polypath, oh right, okay, so that's working, but I have to do something different with that again. Another thing to speed up tangles is increase the garbage collection limit. There's a guy who wrote an article, he got a massive org file to tangle from 10 minutes down to 30 seconds. That seems extremely useful. Oops. And increase GC collection limit to speed up tangles. Good to know. You were saying it earlier how having to buy into Emacs can kind of be a bit of a roadblock for people. I will admit, loving org mode, I love it so much that I'm willing to deal with Emacs, but I don't always love Emacs because of stuff like this, right? Where you can fix the problem, but you don't necessarily know where to look or how to do it, right? It's just kind of an opaque system some of the time. I'm not complaining, it's just kind of the reality I face with using it. And at the end of the day, I still get everything I need to do done. So it's certainly not so bad that I don't use it, right? Hey, Azafaza, I have, I appreciate that. I have the links sharing turned off actually. So if you just give like a name to Google or something like that into the chat, then I can do it from there. I still don't know completely how I want to put all the mod rules and stuff like that. So for now, I turned links off, but that might change in the future. But at the moment, you're unfortunately not able to share a link directly. I hope you understand. Wisdom and wonder, how fast can you tangle? How fast can you tangle org mode? Thanks for that. There, perfect. I'm sure I'll get results searching that, so perfect. As you can see, I'm not like even formatting things properly. Like, I know you can do like the to-dos and stuff like that, but for speed in the stream, I don't even bother to do that. But yeah. Oops. Let's see here. There we go. Thanks for the tips, by the way. I appreciate that. Okay, so the thing I'm thinking through now is this polypath function. This polypath function takes a list of paths, so it looks confusing, and a list of paths is a list of points. So it's that. It takes that list and then it takes this list, right, for any number of points in there. So it looks confusing, but additionally it doesn't fit with the current functions I have that run on just a single list of points like this. So if I make a polygon to be rendered in the 3D approach like this, it creates a list of maps and stuff like that, which I have to fix that too, because I'm not happy with how I've done the defaults for that one, but that's a problem for another day. So what I need is a new idea of, if I take the nodes from that, the list of nodes can still be a flat list of nodes, and the list of edges can technically also be still a flat list of edges, but the faces has to be able to be, yeah, so faces for this is 0, 1, 2, but I need it to instead be more like this, right, where it's got the ability to be doubly listed. I think that makes sense. So How do I want to handle that? I am going to think about it, but actually I'm going to be right back. Gotta head to the washroom for a minute. Please bear with me. I won't be long. All right, I'm back at it. Let's get that out of the way. Okay, what is a good thing to do next? Actually, since I don't want to think about it right away, I'm just gonna double check a thought that came to my mind. I do wonder how easily this handles multiple holes. So actually, if I do 4 and 6, just to have fun with this, make it a hexagon in there. Ooh, I mean that's wrong, but it's cool. Or it's not wrong. It just isn't like a valid face that you could make in the real world. Okay, so we've got that. I wonder what happens when if I make another one of these. Right here. And instead of 5, it's 1. Will that be a green thing in the middle? Yes, it will. Okay, so that is pretty good. If I make this 2 and 1, will it just work continuously? Okay, that's exciting. That's actually a pretty good sign for what I need. Okay, so that's a tangent, but that proves out what I need to be able to do. And what the thrust of what I'm ultimately getting at is the ability to make sketches like that have a bunch of holes in them and stuff like that, right? So this is a extremely crude sketch where all these triangles would be cutouts. and then the line outside would be the actual shape, which you can make in real life, right? Like you could cut that out of a piece of paper and it would be one solid piece, or a piece of wood or something like that. So I want to be able to make sketches like that, and I'm just thinking through the changes I have to make to my generic sort of structure for any 3D shape that I create here. So if I extrude a regular polygon, radius 1/6 there, extrude it by 1, the 3D data I get is these maps. And the thing that I keep trying to correctly think about is how to correctly draw closed loop edges, because the edges I have right now are actually, the more correct term would be line, because they only ever point to 2 points, right? So they can only ever be a line. They can't be a closed loop. So I was saying earlier, maybe I only have to change my definition of faces, but that might not be the case. I might need to change how I define edges as well, being a list of any number of nodes instead. And that conflicts with my extrusion, because the way I've defined extrude is by making a line from, you double and offset the nodes, and then you make a new edge, which is just a line from that node to its counterpart node above, which is confusing again. Oh boy, what a tangled web I have woven for myself. That's okay, this stuff is complex, so a little bit of messing around is no problem. Let me go to draw work in progress. I actually could, without changing my current approach to edges, I could just add, I could have a data structure that is nodes, a list of nodes. Oops. Oh, come on. Quit whining. Let's make an example. So a list of nodes, some list, a list of edges, which is the same as it was before. Now a new thing is a list of loops, or wires, or paths probably, which is a list that points to the edges that make up a path. And then faces would be different. It would point to paths. Does that make any sense? We'll have to clean all of this up soon. I'll put that in the, oh geez. There's no good place to put it right now because I'm just thinking of it as I go, so it's not complete thoughts anyway. Changes to data structure ideas. There. Currently, edges is just a list of lines. This I do want. Could I discern closed loops from the edges automatically? Let's see here. Okay. If I pull the edges out of this, okay. 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 0. Right, so that is obviously, to me, a loop, right? They're all linked to each other. These are the indices of the node list. So this is the 0th point, this is the first point, second point, and so on. And then they go back. There's 5, 0, and then you end up back at this thing here. So if you follow through those lines, it's a closed loop. That's also true of 6 to 7 all the way to here. And then there's these non-looping things. Oh, there's also a duplicate, which is a problem I still haven't fixed. These last sets are just the vertical lines from an extrusion, and so they don't form closed loops on their own. I would have to close the loops myself with some set of logic for what edges are produced. So this is actually more and more potentially, this is more difficult than I thought. This doesn't provide enough detail up front to make polypath faces with holes. I need to have a list of closed paths to could make a function that searches the node or the edge list for cycles, could add a paths key that specifies loops at creation time instead. So I don't know which is better, but I'm realizing I haven't formalized the idea of a sketch yet either. Okay, since I'm a little distracted by it, let me just for a minute here go to my renderables here, entity defaults. Wait a second. Where did wait a second, I'm a little confused here. Why when I make, why are those there and these are here? What did I do? Okay, regular polygon. Polygon 1 to 6 or whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm calling weird defaults here. Oops. Let's have a look here. Okay, it's in this regular polygon 2D thing. Box. Okay, I'm gonna delete box because I don't need it anymore. Okay, here. Oh, maybe, maybe I just have an old definition loaded in my REPL. That might be it. Let's load file again and see. Maybe it changes. Load file, chunk. I also should probably rename that. Rename chunk to something more obvious, like view 3D, and change fabric, no, to quilt patterns, maybe. I don't know. Naming things is still kind of challenging sometimes, for me anyway. Yeah, okay, so the color, yeah, it was just old code in my REPL. That's a risk sometimes when you're doing REPL stuff. Okay. Sketches, let's keep banging our heads against this wall until we get a good idea. Let's see. Let's see. Well, okay, so I'm gonna see if I can come up with something for this first idea. Something that searches the edge list to produce the loops automatically. Although, is that just doing more work unnecessarily? Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Actually, let me run. If I do poly path, if I do that path on just a line, oh, of course I have to do it like this. Okay, so that does work. I don't actually need to run okay, let me start with something there. Let's change the draw function to call polypath instead of what I have it doing now for a moment. It's not it. main function. Okay, so draw edges has this orientation thing to it. For edge and edges, I have it calling a line here with a color here. Okay, so if I just go ahead and comment that out to try and put something new in there for a minute, if I do polypath but change nothing else, I just have it calling, it's going to be the same, so it's a list of paths, but there's only one path, and that path has this point and this point. XA, YA, XB, YB. Let's do that. Let's give that a shot. Will that totally destroy all of my other stuff? I don't think it will, because it effectively is the same as drawing a line. I'm just using the path thing instead. It's all gone. It broke everything. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so I've got here. Let's undo the. Did I change something that I forgot about and then it broke it somewhere else? I didn't think it did. What have I done? Let's get this back. Oh shoot, I deleted box foolishly. I still use it apparently. Oh, my hubris. I was so cavalier deleting that. Serves me right. I must have it in the legs. Where did it go? Where did I put it? Oh, right here, this whole thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's my bad. This whole section is now essentially useless, which I'm actually okay with, because it wasn't exactly useful for me anyway. Is that gonna work? Yeah. Sometimes my own hubris kind of just forces the issue of cleaning it up a little bit. So that does check out. Now everything is working. These are now all path elements. They should be. If I inspect that, oh, it's a polyline. Wait a second. Is that what is that what it should be? Let's see. Inspect. Oh, no. It works because I technically haven't changed anything yet. Okay, now we'll try the path and see if that works. Haven't, there we go. Still have to, okay, there we go. It looks like it made changes now. Let's inspect it. Yes, they're now all paths. Okay, that's a good thing. That is a step in the right direction for me. Okay, so now, so I know that it works to call polypath on that. Now, what I could do is make a little draw loops testing thing here. Draw loops, does that? Okay, if I have a list of, let me just see here. Let me make a test shape for a minute here. Extrude a regular polygon. Radius 2, 6 sides, extrude it by 2. If I take the edges of that, and if I do def ASDF foo is map val onto edges of ASDF. That should give me just a list of things, right? Yeah. So now I'm trying to think of a clever way that I can realize that this is one loop. So it's basically, if you have you want to kind of check, so it's like you'll know it's right when you've got equal. Is that a valid predicate? No. If you have equal first of 0, 1, and you're checking second of, or last of 5, 0, right? If those are equal, it's true. That means you've finished that means you can end the loop at that point, or like that edge is included in, oh boy. Well, you can do, okay, if I do map, if I make this equal, let's say the index value that the index I'm currently looking to match is there, is matching the index on the last of the thing passed into it. If I map that to foo, I should get falses and then a true somewhere. And then you can do take while, and the predicate is take while true? No, take while false. Is false a valid predicate? Take while false. This whole thing. And then if I count that, 5. So then if I do on the get from foo, the 5th, oh shoot, let's make def foo map v for simplicity here, map v, and then I do get 5 from foo. Does that give me the correct? Yeah, it does. If I do take 5 from foo, it gets me wonder, well, okay, so take, right, you just increment this, and then you've got, so you have there, exactly there, you've got the first loop of edges. Okay, so let me make a function that captures what I've just kind of figured out there. Get loop. Well, that's a shame. What happened? Yeesh. That might be a bit of a sign to be almost done for the day. I want to finish up the thoughts in my brain on this one for a minute though. So if I get a loop, what I want to do is give this function an index to match on, and the edges. So what I'll do there, let's make the easier one first. Get first loop, okay, is edges, and then what I've done is a whole bunch of weird things. Okay, so edges is that whole thing. Oops. Okay. Let index be first of first edges, like that. Yeah. And then index, and then n edges is count take while false. Mask, we'll make that like this, equals index, last of this. So you map that onto edges, and you have to do map v actually, because you need to be able to get from the indices. And you just increment this. And then the first loop is take n edges from edges. Okay, does that work? Let's find out. Let's do get first loop of foo. What have I done? Take while, I didn't finish the function. Count take while false, but you have to take from the mask. Is that gonna work now? Let's try it. There we go. Okay, so that is right. That's the first loop. So what do I do now if I want to get the rest of the loops, right? Because I know there's one more loop here. There's this one here. Heading out for some food. Thanks for streaming. Really enjoyed chatting. Thanks, Azafaza. Have a good one, eh? I really appreciate the chatting and tuning in. Hopefully I'll see you around, eh? Have a good one. Have a good one. Okay. Well, it's dangerous, but actually maybe it's not dangerous. Maybe if I do this, maybe if I return something like this, it's take n edges, and then it does drop n edges from edges like that, and so it gives me everything but kind of split into two. That looks good. That would mean right, if I run So if I do get first loop on foo, and I run get first loop on second of get first loop, right? Then I get the second loop is correctly identified here. There's get loops edges, right, which is you run get loops on, wrong thing, I meant to split it there. Get loops on edges, but you do get loops of get first loops edges, and then here you do loops I'm not loving what I'm coming up with right now, but it's the first thought that comes into my mind, so I'll start there and tweak it later. Okay, so we've got loops, and oh, I don't want this actually. I only want this. Let's see. Let me back up a little bit here. Let's clean this up a little bit to be just take in edges of edges, right? I can start from there and kind of go at it. So that's get first loop. So what I can actually do, see what I need is some way to kind of check, because it is possible if I do foo, if I drop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These last ones, drop 12 foo. None of there's no loops in this list. So if I do get first loop on drop 12 of foo, there's nothing that it can do. Right? So what did it return for me here? Yeah, so okay, so the list. Oh, this there's a duplicate error in here, so it actually does foo. Is there a drop last or something like that? Drop last, there is. Okay, so if I drop 12 from drop last foo to get rid of that mistake, I get this, which isn't a real loop. It doesn't make sense that it would actually. Oh, okay, so take while false, right? So this only works. So I actually need to be able to check something here. Defen all true. All true. Takes a list, right? Reduce true. False, false, false. What happens? No. That's not a thing. Okay, that's wrong. Okay. Come on. Oh, if I actually do take while true, and then I have just a list of false, 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 right? And then if I do over that, if I do greater than 0 of count of that, there's no true. So all false. You can run this on a collection list. No. Do that. Greater than 0, count, take while, true, list. So, okay, does that make sense? All false, 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 true, false. Okay, it's not doing anything correct for me. But I'm going to go to the washroom again for a moment. So yet again, I will be right back. Shouldn't be long. All right. All right, I'm not going to stay for much longer. I'm at that point where my brain is petering down and like thinking quickly, you know? That happens sometimes. I'm okay with it. But I want to at least, I'm going to get this predicate working in a way that actually makes sense. If I count an empty list, it is 0. Okay. If I count an empty vector, is 0. If I take while true, imagine a list that's false, false, false. Oh, this is not going to work. First of all, right, okay, so all false. Oh, actually, I thought of something different. If I do into a set a list of false, 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 right? It'll return a list that, or it'll return a set of length 1 that contains false. If I do into set of false, true, right? If there's a true in there at all, in the mask at all, right? I get a set which I can count, right? Yeah, that has length 2. So I can use that fact to not make okay, I'll make a predicate that says defen all true. All true. Yeah, sure. Right? List. Then right away I do let the set be into. Let me split this for a moment. Okay, into a set, the list. Hey, our Verms, how's it going? What is up, my dude? You know, just working away. Have you been watching for a while or just tuning in now? Just tuned in now? Okay. Let me give you the scoop for a minute. This here, what you see that I'm circling with my cursor, is a big improvement over what I was able to do. Bob Ross in it, man. So I'm not sure if you tuned in yesterday, but I was able to make this. Looks like a bit of a nut and bolt kind of thing. I've got a bunch of functionality that's starting to make this all actually work a little better. So I was able to make a thing that merges two different shapes together. So let's see. What's something that I could show you nice and simply? Okay, I've got a bolt here, right? If I change this to 3 and change this to, let's go 1.5. So if I save that and rebuild it, this single piece will change shape. Just gotta wait for it to build for a minute. There we go. See, it technically broke. It's the wrong length now, but that's fine. This has to be 2, or if I make it 3, then the cylinder part has to be, boy oh boy, I'm confusing myself. Cylinder here, extrude 6. Let's just make it that. Make it back. The point I'm trying to make is, I was able, the way this renders, it's now, the computer assumes this is one solid piece, even though I can make it look not that way, which is a big improvement over what I had before. Then the next thing I have to start working on is making sketches that have holes in them. So this polygon on the outside here, as you see, sometimes in real life you want to extrude things that have holes inside them. In order to make it render properly, you need, I had to change how I implemented it, and I got the base of that working. So I'm in the middle now of changing out some of the data structure ideas I had, and I'm making a predicate function here that tells me if a list of items is all true or all false, which, not sure if that makes any sense to you, but it's the last thing I'm going to do. It'll take me a few minutes, and then I'm going to get going in, let's say, 20 minutes or so. But yeah, I'm not sure if any of that made sense, but that's what I've been working on. This was the most satisfying thing today, that I can nest shapes like that, and I can change them around too if I want. So this one here, if I make this 8 and wait for it to rebuild, it'll be an octagon on the outside. I think that's pretty fun. I'm just glad that it works. Yeah, I lost in how confusing it all looks. Yeah, unfortunately, super dope, thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, the workflow, it honestly is a little confusing sometimes. I can briefly explain a little bit of what's going on here. This window right here, you can effectively ignore. It's just, this is just my notepad, basically. It doesn't, none of the code I'm writing and running is using that pane. That's also true of this. This block right here is where I keep little things that I can, little notes that I can turn into like blog posts or whatever later. But that is also not the code that is creating this. The only three things that technically matter is this one up here, which is the document itself. So if I write ASDF in the title, save that, and wait for it to rebuild, you'll see it show up right here. There it is. So this up here is this document directly. And then this down here, what I'm scrolling right now, is the code library that helps me produce the document. And what you're seeing here is, of course, just a web browser with the HTML file opened directly. So I can see, as I'm writing it, I can see the output. And technically, there's one other thing, or two other things that matter. I've got here a separate program running there's this thing here, fswatch, file system watch, is its own program, and I tell it to watch this file, and then anytime I save a change into that file, it runs something, it runs my code here. It puts that file name into my code and runs my code in a separate background process kind of thing. So that's that. And then the last thing is I have here a web server that anytime a file changes, it refreshes this web browser page for me, so I don't have to manually refresh the page. So that's what's going on. If you want to follow along at all, which you don't have to, it's totally cool, these two windows, this one and this one, are the ones where the most of the work happens. Oh, and one thing I did not explain is this window right here. This I can run samples of code, and it'll just print the output right away for me. So I could do something like this, right? So I ran the function printline hi argvirms, and then it printed out the result to right there. That's useful because I can write in this file here, I can write functions hello there. So I can put this function that I just wrote here, I can send it to this window. Now the function exists, and I can do say hi argvirms, and then it'll run that code in that window. That's so much clearer. I feel like coding always looks confusing because it doesn't look obvious where to start coding things out, to me anyways. So it seems like the right side is almost like a sketchpad to test out ideas. Yeah, actually, Sketchpad is a really good, by right side actually, like, do you mean the, like right here, the web browser, or do you mean here, this thing? Either way, in both cases, Sketchpad is kind of, I think, the right idea. The middle right, yeah, this. So the correct term for this window is called a REPL, like this, REPL. And you're totally right. Sketchpad, I think, is a very good way to describe it. The reason it's called a REPL is REPL stands for read, eval, as in short for evaluate, print, which means print onto the, like, print is just pasting the result on there, and then L stands for loop. And Sketchpad is the exact right way to do it, right? You could write little bits of code, you can test it all out as you're going, and then you can write things into your files and push them back and forth to each other. It's an extremely useful way to program, in my opinion. But yeah, basically like a code sketchpad is a very good way to define it. There's also fun little weird things you can do in other windows here. I can run this code, instead of running it here, I can run it and it'll paste the result right into the file. So, you know, there's all kinds of ridiculous ways that you can run your code. It's a lot of fun. It can admittedly get confusing sometimes, but overall, if you pay attention to these three windows here and then have the output here, it's a pretty nice workflow, in my opinion. Hope that makes even a little bit of sense. Okay, let me just finish up this all true predicate here. Okay, so what I've got to do, I have, okay, if equals 2, the count of s, if the count of s equals 2, then I know that they're not all true, so I actually return false. Otherwise, I can return the first of s. Is that going to work? Let's find out. Keep it up. Thanks for the explanation. Yeah, glad to explain. It's really fun to talk about the overall idea of the workflow and stuff. I find it quite useful. You can see right now that I'm actually using the REPL in the way you described earlier, sort of a sketch pad. I wrote this function, and now I'm testing it out right here. So all true, I want this function all true to tell me if the list of things is all true. In this case, the list I'm giving it is all false, so it should return false. I can also test it. If I do false, 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 true, this should still be false. What have I done? Right? So it is still false. And then the last test, all true. I want it to be true, 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 true. Perfect. Now, I do need to know, this should not, okay, good. Perfect. So, that's that, and then if I do, I can make an all false, which is the complement of that. Complement all true is a function, right? Yeah. So if I run complement, well, let me try this. Let's do it this way. All true returns true because all of those are true. The complement of that complement should return false. Okay. Oh, but so the complement of that isn't actually what, the complement of that won't be what I want. I want all false, false, and then this okay, this has to be different. I have to actually check. False, like that. So, confusingly, all false should tell me true when I give it a list of only false, false, false. True. False. Good. Seems weird, but that's exactly what I need. Perfect. Okay, we're good. Just so I'm more robust here, I'm going to change this out for a moment. So, all true, 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 true. True, true, true. Okay, good enough for now. Okay, so we've got the two predicate functions that I need to start thinking about how to put together a little check on this. Okay, so I've got here flag all false. I don't technically need the all true function, it's just there for completeness, I guess. Okay, flag all false, mask. So what I want to try now to test this idea, the mask. Okay, get first loop. Oh, did I break it? Got to do this. There we go. Okay. So get first loop of foo. Because I'm testing the mask flag, and I know that there are 2 loops in the foo test edges list, I should see false. Oh. I meant to return flag, not mask. But because this true exists in the list, it should say false when I run this again. There we go. But if I instead do drop 12 of foo, right? That's, oh, I have to do drop 12 of drop last of foo. Yeah. Now if I do get first loop, I think this should say true. Yeah. Okay. That's a good sign. That means this flag is detecting correctly that there are no loops in the remaining, like in the list of edges. So that means I should safely be able to do something like this. Okay, I should be able to, if flag if no loops, if there are no loops, you if no loops, you do no loops. We'll just start there. And if there are loops, you take n edges of edges. Yeah, that's a start. So if I do get first loop of this thing, it should print out no loops. Okay. Then if I do get first loop of foo, the original, then I get a loop. Okay, that's perfect. So then actually I can, this actually needs edges and an accumulator. Yeah, so the initial accumulator will be, so I just return the accumulator here, which will be, yeah, that's fine. Okay, perfect. And then here, what I actually can do is run get first loop on drop n edges of edges, and then the accumulator is concatenate. No, wait. Conj or concat? I always mess that up. Conj 2 onto that. Yeah, it'll be conj. Conj this onto the accumulator. So that's the whole loop. Let's see if that will actually work. Get first loop, lop, loop, foo. Wrong number of arguments. Yeah, that makes sense because I haven't fixed that part yet. Okay. That didn't work. Okay, why didn't that work? So, it's a list of is it actually conj or is it concat? No, that's not helpful to me. It is conj. I think I'm almost right, but not totally right here. Get first loop of foo edges, and the accumulator is just an empty list, or an empty vector in this case. Okay, we have we have two loops and then nothing else. So that returned just the accumulator, right? If I count this, it should be 2. Yeah. If I do first of this, it should be a loop. 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 0. Yep. And the second one should also be a valid loop. 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, 6, back to 6. Perfect. Okay, that's actually really exciting. Get loops. Okay, so I've got get loops, and then I call get loops here. There we go. So I have a valid. I'm going to put that in my recursion examples thing here. This is a method. This is a function that finds loops in edge lists. Clojure, and paste that in there. Since I am usually bad at recursion, I always get confused. It's good to have an example that works, so let me just try get loops on foo again. Well, let me fix it. Let me make it a little easier on myself for a minute by doing this. I can do edges, and when you call this function with just edges, you do get loops, edges, and then pass the accumulator in yourself. So now that function should work the way I want. Yes, that is fantastic. Okay, so now I just want to try one final thing here. I should be able to replace this get loops with a recur macro, and it should, I think it'll work exactly the same. So let me find out. Yes, indeed it does. So let me just copy that into my, copy this a little preemptively, put that away. There we go. All right. So that is a win. I'm happy with that. Very happy with that, to be frank. And I'm just saving my changes here, saving this, and I'm gonna call that good for my stream for the day. I got what I wanted. Well, actually I did not finish what I wanted to, but I'm making big steps toward a system that can let me draw these in a more fundamentally accurate manner. So I'm quite pleased with that. Yeah, no more code for me today. Before I go, anyone who's still watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate that. Anyone chatting, that was awesome. A lot of fun to talk. Had a good time today. Anyone who's watching and doesn't chat, that is completely fine too. I'm just totally happy that people tune in and view it. I'm going to be back again tomorrow at 12:30. For the whole month, I'm doing this every day because I want to build the habit of doing it, first of all, so that I know what makes things good, what makes things, or what I don't need to do any more of, that kind of thing. But fundamentally, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm going to keep doing it. So thanks everyone who's watching and participating. Stay tuned, because I'm just going to keep trying to make things better over time. On that note, I hope everyone has a good one, and I'll be back tomorrow.